Welcome to the Breakthrough Success Podcast, helping you achieve that breakthrough you've always been looking for in your business.
Hello,
and now
and
your
welcome.
host,
I'm your host, Mark
Converti.
Converti, and this is the podcast for marketers and small business owners who are looking for the breakthrough for their businesses. I am very excited about this show. For episode 65 of the Breakthrough Success Podcast, we are going to talk about building a strong personal brand with our guest, Lee Caraher. Lee is the founder and CEO of Double Forte, a 15-year-old public relations and digital media agency. The Millennial Whisperer, as she calls herself, and as her audience knows her, has become a highly sought-after keynote speaker on hiring and retaining a high-performing, multi-generational team. She is also the author of 2 books, Millennials and Management, and The Boomerang Principle. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Lee to the show.
Mark, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to try to match your energy.
Lee, it is such a pleasure to have you on the Breakthrough Success Podcast. And before we take a really deep dive into building that strong personal brand, I'd love to get some backstory. So why did you decide to build a personal brand?
Personal brand is all about your options. And if the stronger your personal brand, the more options you have in your personal life, in your career, and in your perhaps the other extracurricular things you like to do in the world. So the stronger it is, the better options you have.
Lee, thank you for sharing with us what got you started. And personal brand can take on so many different meanings for so many different people. And with all these different meanings, what do you see makes a strong personal brand?
I think first it's important to understand what I'm talking about with personal brand. Personal brand is what people say when you're not there, right? It's like, Mark, he's high energy. He's a cool guy. He knows what he's talking about. He gives a good interview. You know, you want to be on his show, that kind of thing that would happen without your aiding. Of course, anything you can do to help people reinforce what you want your brand to be is good. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about personal brand. And I think in terms of how to create one, first you have to understand, what you're here for, what's your purpose, and what do you want to be known for. So I want to be known for telling it like it is. I want to be known for making things happen. I want to be known for helping good companies do great things. That's what I want to be known for. And then what you do is you say it over and over again in many, many different places, and then you prove it. Just saying it doesn't make it come true. You got to prove it and demonstrate that those things are actually true. And you can do that in many different kinds of ways, particularly online. Personal branding really came with the internet when people could have their own. The idea of having your own website was, so revolutionary at the time. And today, it's the first thing any millennial knows, right? As soon as a new platform comes out, go get your name on that platform, because it's so important to maintain your name across platforms.
Thank you for sharing with us some of the elements that make a strong personal brand. And there are many things that, as we just mentioned, that we could focus on. So with all these different options, how do we determine what we should be focusing on for our personal brand?
Yeah. So I think that let's just focus on the career personal brand right now. Because obviously a personal brand is more than what your work is. But if we focus there first. So the most important thing you need to be, right, is have a very strong LinkedIn. This could be when you're in college. This could be when you're 65 years old. But you have to have a strong LinkedIn profile. And for this, I really recommend filling it all the way out. LinkedIn does a great job of telling you where you are in terms of your strengths. It'll move up your 50%, your 60%, you're a rock star kind of stuff, right? But the more you can provide background on what you have achieved and what you've done in your career, even if you're young, the better it is. And then understanding how to use keywords that will help people find you. So, for instance, I run a public relations and social media and digital marketing firm. I use those words over and over again on my LinkedIn profile, so that if people are looking for somebody with public relations, digital marketing, social media, agency needs, that I will show up in a search. So that's the first place to start. The next piece is you want to think about the other places, right? So let's talk about online. So the big four, YouTube, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, big five, I guess, and Snapchat Are you going to use these personally and or professionally? And it is true that you can find anything today, but I really recommend separating the two and thinking about it this way. Pinterest, mostly, unless you're an author or a DIY expert or a stylist, those are the kinds of places where you would want to have a good company profile on Pinterest. Pinterest also lets you lock things down so that people can't see your boards, which is really handy. Twitter, open platform. And if you are going to share your political points of view on Twitter, just know that anybody can see them. So if you feel like that would be challenging from a career perspective, maybe you want to not comment on Twitter about politics. Facebook is a blended situation, right? You can have a company page or a corporate page for yourself, and you have a private page for your friends. I try to do that. I keep my friends on my Facebook page, and they can also be on my company page, my Lee Caraher page. But I keep my people who I don't know well on that page. So I separate the two things. So really deciding how you're going to use the different platforms to your advantage. So that's the next piece. The third piece is what you share, right? Personal brand is about what you share in the universe. What are you known for? What are you being generous with? And the more generous with information you can be, the better it is, the stronger your personal brand is. And so whatever your expertise is, whatever you want to be known for, I recommend sharing those that kind of information. So it could just be articles that you see. So you could be sharing things into your LinkedIn feed that you see from other people. You could be blogging on the LinkedIn profile, publishing articles on the LinkedIn platform. That's very helpful for you to be easily found and be known for different kinds of expertise. Or if you have your own website and you're blogging, or you have your own podcast, those kinds of things, those all go to your personal brand. And then syndicating that information throughout the different public forums, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Pinterest, is the way that you can build audience and have people be able to find you when they need you.
Lee, thank you for sharing with us some of those areas that we should be focusing on within our personal brands and figuring out which ones we should pick. And one of your strengths I mentioned earlier is that you know a lot about retaining a high-performing, multi-generational team. So with that in mind, I'm wondering, how do you build a multi-generational team that helps you expand your presence, your message, and help you out with your efforts?
Well, I think that, when you're building a team, a work team today, the stronger it is, the more, so the strongest teams are diverse, right? The ones that have different generations, have both genders or all genders, depending on if you're hypergender or low gender or sliding gender, whatever it is, right? Different races, different backgrounds, different, all that kind of stuff. The most diverse teams, when they work well together, are the strongest teams, because most companies, most people want to reach a diverse audience, because that is the American audience today. It is not monolithic. So one, having an eye towards it. Two, if you just think about generations, boomers, Xers, millennials, these are the three generations that are really in the workplace today. We have some silence. Those are people over 68 years old who are in the workplace. But mostly, it's boomers, Xers, and millennials. And each generation has its own thing, right? And millennials get a bad rap, man. They get such a bad rap. I'm a boomer. I'm the last year boomer. And frankly, if I don't have millennials in my company, I don't have a future in my company. Period. So, it is not altruistic to say, you got to have the Y generation range in your company if you want to have a go forward plan. How you build your teams then or around, how do you help the people who have the strongest sense of personal brand, which are the millennials, thrive in your workplace? Because if millennials thrive, so can Gen Xers and so can boomers. And the reverse is not necessarily true. So it's one, honoring everybody's contribution, regardless of age, number one. Two, providing tremendous amount of context. So when I grew up in the workplace, I just did things because people told me. That does not work anymore. And we really need to provide a lot of context around here's what the job is. Here's what our part of the job is. Here's what your role is in the job. And if you don't do your job, none of us do our jobs, and we all together we fail. So the more context you can put around that, the better. The more understanding of everybody's role in the team, the better people work together. And the last piece is really based on research that demonstrates that high-performing teams are well-appreciated teams. Those companies that have teams that understand that they are appreciated outperform those teams that don't feel they're appreciated by about 30%. And 30% is profit. That goes right to the bottom line. So just saying please and thank you throughout your day can go a long, long way to making sure everyone understands that they are appreciated, their work is appreciated, and that together everyone can make good things happen. That doesn't mean that we don't have a very high standard for work, because there's only business if there's business, right? And you can't get work, you can't get business if you're known for schlocky work. So unless you have a lot of money to pay for it in a different kind of way, which most of us don't, right? So you have to have a very high standard of work that you want to describe over and over and over again. And at the same time as you are making people understand that you appreciate that they are working on your behalf.
Lee, thank you for sharing those great insights on building that multi-generational team. And I love how the little things like thanking people and treating them with respect and making them feel that respect can really come a long way for the growth of your business. And I know with the growth of any business, it requires that you explore various opportunities, but how do you explore new opportunities while still focusing on what's currently working?
Yeah. Well, I think this is the key, right? This is, it'd be easier just to start and stop all the time, frankly. But really, as a business owner and thinking about the future, you always want to be thinking 5 years out, 3 years out, not just like what is going on right this second. And you have to change the wheels while you're driving the bus towards that direction, right? In my experience, the best way to do that is to be really honest with your team and say, here's where we are today. Here's where I think the business is going to have to go to be competitive and relevant and have all the options we want to have in the future. And we're going to get from point A to point B in however many years, 2-3 years. And this is what it's going to require for everybody. We have to do a great job doing the things we do right now. But we all need to know. And there isn't a business. There is not a business in America, I'm going to say the world, that doesn't need to be thinking about how they're going to transition in the next 18 to 24 months, because those that don't will find themselves out of business relatively soon. So you just have to, that fast change used to happen at decades. Now it's happening in 6 to 18 months. And it's constantly evolving, and that needs to be understood as a constant, as a normal thing, not to be static. And the more you can talk about it, the more you can share your vision for the future, the more you can say, well, that vision of the future didn't work, but this is what is going to have to be relevant, and just share that information back out to your people. The more they're going to understand, one, that just because you do a great job today doesn't mean that actually that job is going to be existing tomorrow, and that they also have to evolve. The worst place as an individual you can be is when you find yourself irrelevant because you didn't move yourself along in your skill set at the pace of the business. And you can look around and see, in any business, you can see, what other people are doing who are getting ahead, and you have to pace yourself with them, regardless of your age, regardless of your income, and regardless of the things you've done in the past, because it's such a dynamic business environment. It's a worldwide environment, and we have to make ourselves relevant all the time.
Lee, thank you for sharing those great insights. And I love that whole idea of planning out months and years in advance, anticipating what will happen, because we're definitely in that world of change where new things seem to be on the rise, new opportunities. But one thing that never really seems to change is that we always have to be able to communicate our message and tell others about our personal brands who don't know about us yet. So How do we get good at talking to others about our personal brands? Because I feel like a personal brand and talking about it is different than talking about a brand other than a personal brand.
Like a company brand, yeah.
Yes.
It is. Basically, how do you get good at talking about yourself without sounding like a jerk? Basically is where you need to really understand. You need to get really comfortable being confident about talking about yourself without coming off as a self-involved jerk. And that's really a fine line, right? Learning how to be that kind of thing. So one, it's practice. Practice. And how do you practice? When you look in the mirror and you practice what you're going to say. Like, how would you describe yourself in it's called the elevator pitch in business. And this helps if you think about your own elevator pitch. Hi, I'm Lee Caraher. I'm a CEO. I'm an author. And I'm here to help really great organizations make really great progress in their categories. And I'm also believe really strongly that everybody has a gift. And I'm here in my work as an author to help people find those gifts in business so that they can be super happy in their workplace. I've had a little practice, right? So, but it's really honing it down. What do I want to be known for? What if people only can know one thing about me? What is it? Understanding your name. If you have a hard name to say, I used to go by my Lee Caraher. It is a mouthful. McEnany was my maiden name. I didn't get married till I was in my 30s. I held on for a while, and in my business cards, I say says Lee Caraher, but I don't introduce myself that way anymore because it's just such a mouthful that people can't remember it. It's like Lee. I'm not Cher or Madonna. I'm just, can't be just Lee. So that's the first piece. What do you want to be known for, and how do you talk about it, right? And then not to be, and I did this, and I did that, and I know this person, I know that person. That just is really not useful. The other place where you can get very good practice and also can pay so many dividends for you is networking. I cannot underscore the importance of networking for anybody at any age. You want to be networking before you need to network, basically. And in networking, choose one. Here, I'll give you a few ideas. One is go through your LinkedIn, and there's 10 people you haven't talked to in the last year, or 12 people. 12 is better. 12 people you haven't talked to that, they are great people to work with, or I would like to work with them again. And then you outreach one at a time, just once a month, you're reconnecting with people. And it could just be a phone call. Can I have 10 minutes just to catch up with you live and tell you what I'm doing? And in that phone call, it's like you bring them up to speed. Here's what I've been doing with my time. Love to hear what you're doing. And then the question you always want to ask is, is there any way I can help you achieve your goal? Let me know. I'm happy to help you without asking for them to ask you the same question. And what you'll find is that the more you can offer that connection, even if it's just 10 minutes with these people once a year, twice a year, your network will be stronger. The next piece is to choose one event. I'm going to just say a quarter. One event a quarter that you're going to go to in your industry, in your neighborhood, in your city, in something you want to do that you're not doing now, something. And you go to that event, and maybe you're nervous. Everybody's nervous. I'm a strong extrovert, ENFP. I'm super extroverted, and I hate it. I really am always just like, oh, God, no one's going to want to talk to me. So instead, what I do is I actually show up on time because no one's ever on time to these things. And I meet the people behind the desk, and I tell them I'm looking to meet 3 people I don't know today who can maybe provide me video services, just for an example. And so I have the people behind the desk thinking about me already. So already I've achieved something. And I go in with an expectation. I just want to meet 3 people who have video services, who are in my region, and who can see if they can do some work for me. That's my only goal. And then that's the goal, right? And you leave after you meet your goal because always leave a party when you're still having fun. And then when you go in that networking event, you might find yourself stuck, right? We've all been there. We find ourselves stuck with, the Debbie Downer of the group. Wah, 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 right? And then you can just excuse yourself. I said to myself, I'm going to meet 3 people who are video producers during this event, and it's been so great to meet you. But I need to go find those 3 people because that's what I'm really here for today. And here's my card and link with me or something like that. So you can move yourself through. The worst kind of networking you can do is just go and you don't have a purpose. You don't have a thing. And what I find is when you go in ready, have an idea, meet 3 people with this kind of experience, you come out with actually knowing a lot more people. Because that kind of drive and that kind of focus, people are drawn to, and you will leave, with many more cards than you anticipated. And if you're just doing that once a quarter, and you're talking to someone you haven't talked to that you already know you like working with them, once a month, you will be so far ahead of the pack. Oh my gosh, because people don't like networking, but it's so important, and so that you become top of their mind. If an opportunity that makes sense for you comes up. The worst thing to do is when you find out that your friend Joe, who you haven't talked to in over a year, recommended Sally instead of you for an opportunity that you're perfect for, because you didn't remind Joe of who you are and what your brand is, right? It is your job to make sure that the people who could be influential for you know who you are.
There were so many amazing insights within that answer. Networking, like not waiting until you have to and then talking to the person behind the desk. Those are some really powerful methods. I'm really grateful that you shared those great insights with us. And I know that throughout any journey, there are many challenges on the path to success. And I'm wondering, what is a big challenge you faced in your journey and a powerful lesson you learned during that challenge?
Well, I wish there's only one, Mark. I would say lots of challenges in my journey. One, I started this company 15 years ago, and nothing has changed more in our culture in the last 15 years than how we communicate, which is what I do for a living, right? So we definitely there were a couple of times where we got caught behind the 8 ball. I'm like, wait, what happened? Where did that come from? Wasn't paying attention hard enough to what was happening in our field in terms of the art of communication and helping people communicate their message to the people they want to reach. So I think the lesson, and we could have been out of business 3 or 4 times because we just caught it right in time, kind of thing. A few things on that. One, the lessons is that, relevance is fleeting and relevance is currency. And it all can become, you can become irrelevant pretty quickly today if you're not keeping current. And it is a little overwhelming to do, but even just reading things and trying things out so that you can bring something new to your mix, right? So with my friend group, I'm always bringing the new apps to try because in our world, apps are currency in communication world, right? That's the first rule, the first lesson I learned. The next lesson I learned was I learned it hard way. The people who get you in your company, who get you to a certain place, are not necessarily people who will take you to the future. And if people are unwilling to remain relevant in their positions, then you really got to cut them loose. And that is the hardest thing for me. I feel like I learned that again and again and again, and hopefully I learn it faster each time. So I'm not hanging on to people because people are important. You get nowhere without people, but the people you need are the ones who are willing to be relevant always and to stay current. And it is a challenge, particularly for older people who are maybe looking at retirement going, I don't want to learn that at 5 years out. But it's not a choice anymore. It's not a choice if we want to have options in our work.
Lee, thank you for sharing with us that big challenge you faced along your journey and the lesson you learned. And there's another thing I'm going to ask you to share because I am a natural bookworm. A lot of people on the break, yeah. I read 10 to 30 books in some months, so I go
wonderful.
I go really deep. And with that in mind, I'm wondering, what are 3 great books that you could think of that would be great for Breakthrough Success listeners?
Some of the I'm not as voracious as you are, Mark, but I do read a lot. And I do think that most leaders need to read a lot because they need to get, even if they get one nugget, right, of goodness from each book. 3 books. I would choose I would choose The Power of Onlyness by Nilofer Merchant. It's a relatively new book. And it talks about how each of us has a gift and things that only we can do. And when we can combine and assemble teams who understand their gift of onlyness, that's when we can all create great things together. 2 is a book called Pivot, and it is about how to keep moving forward in your business. Where you start is not where you're going to end, particularly in this environment, in the worldwide market that we're in today. And I guess the third one would be Work, Pause, Thrive by Lisa Stromberg. Work, Pause, Thrive is really about how men and women, but mostly it comes from the female experience, can take a pause in their career without killing it. And that is super important as people not just become parents, but then become caretakers of their parents and their elderly relatives, which is going to become a bigger and bigger issue in the next 20 years for the American workforce. And the more we can, as leaders, understand how we can sort of bend and flex to accommodate great workers and great employees who are handling big things, the stronger we're going to be and the more sustainable we're going to be. And then, of course, you can read my books too.
Definitely check those out. Those will be in the show notes description at markgilberti.com/E65. And I've asked you a lot of questions. And with that in mind, what is one question that you believe we need to be asking ourselves more often?
I think we should all be asking, what is true today that wasn't true 3 months ago? What is true today that wasn't 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago? So that you can make sure that you're always constantly thinking about how things are evolving. And if you could ask that yourself on a quarterly basis with your leadership team, just the answers alone, the answer is never nothing. I'll give you a tip. The answer is never nothing. And see when things hit a tipping point where you need to really pay attention to them. You know, there's so much information. It can be information overload. I don't know how you're reading 30 books a month. Oh, my goodness. But what it tells me about you, Mark, is that you are a good filterer. You know what to read and you know what to pay attention to and you know what to put down and then pick up again later. If you're reading 30 books a month, you're definitely doing that. And it's important to get as much input as we can as leaders, but also to have really strong filters to know when something demands our attention and is not just information.
Lee, thank you for sharing with us that question that we should ask ourselves more often, and for sharing all of your great insights throughout this session, throughout this interview. I'm thinking about summits. And so for listeners who want to know, where can we find you on the web?
Easiest thing to do is go to my website, www.leecaraher.com, LeeCaraher.com. You can find my agency, Double Forte. You can find my books. You can find my blog. And I tweet at Lee Caraher, where you can find all that stuff.
All right, Breakthrough Success listeners, those links and the show notes will be at markgilberti.com/E65. Lee, it was a pleasure to have you on the Breakthrough Success podcast.
Mark, what a great thing to be with you. Thank you for all you do.
That's it. To never miss an episode, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on whatever player you are using. If you are a regular listener and haven't done so already, I would greatly appreciate it if you could give this podcast a review or a rating. Two ways you could do this are through markgabberty.com/iTunes or markgabberty.com/Stitcher. That ends this episode. Don't forget, dream big, achieve greatness, and unlock your potential today.
Want your tweets get retweeted to my 360,000 Twitter followers? All you have to do is say something nice about the Breakthrough Success Podcast and include the link markgabberty.com/iTunes. Once you've posted that tweet, email me, mark@markgabberty.com, and I will retweet your tweet to my 360,000 followers. This podcast is a production done by Mark Gabberty. For more insights, head on over to markgabberty.com.